Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Crowd Chair Podcast. So, today is going to be another MLB video. I did the American League not long ago, so now I'm doing the National League. Some of the dust has settled with some of the trades, so let's see if I can get this in with not a massive trade happening while I'm out, while I'm videoing. But we'll start with the NL East. We start with the Atlanta Braves, who are the best team in all baseball right now in terms of record at 67 and 37. Yeah, this is a really good team. They have a good pitching staff. They have good hitters. Michael Harris, their Rookie of the Year of the National League last year, has completely turned it all around after a lackluster start to the year. Ronald Acuna obviously has been an MVP candidate this year. He's been that good. And the rest of the Atlanta team has done very well. Of course, Spencer Strider's been just has been very good pitching. I believe that the Braves are going to soon get Max Fried. I believe he's going to be coming back very soon. Of course, they also in terms of trades added themselves Brad Hand, so that's nice to have as well. Um, but Braves are a very good team. Obviously, this is a World Series contender, and honestly, they're at the way they're playing, the way they've looked. I would consider this team probably my favorite to win the World Series right now. And right behind them is actually the runners up of the World Series last year in the Philadelphia Phillies at 57 and 49. They have had a mostly disappointing year. They have sort of turned it around from a lackluster start to the season because they really were just chugging along at a pretty miserable pace until finally recently, where they have sort of turned it around a little bit. The record has been slightly better, but still not. I wouldn't say overly impressive, but it's better than it was before, and it's gotten them to a wild card spot. So, I mean, that's better than nothing. Um, Phillies also just recently made a move themselves in the trade department, going and getting from the Tigers Michael Lorenzen, sending us their uh, fifth ranked prospect. Never heard of the guy. Maybe he turns into something. Who knows? But the Philadelphia Phillies, overall, decent team. Their big time signing of Trey Turner hasn't really panned out this year. So I'm sure they're really hoping that he does pan out for him, or that he will eventually, completely turn the page and do a full 180 essentially. But so far, he really hasn't done that. Still, Phillies are in the playoff race. They're still in the wild card race, but definitely not the season the Phillies, I'm sure, we're hoping for. Next up, we have the Miami Marlins, who have been bit of a surprise this year at 57 and 50. They're also in the wild card race. This is a team that really needs some offense, and I would, if I'm the Marlins, I would add some bats at the trade deadline because you really need some, and you need some healthy ones. Specifically, I would say some power bats because Miami doesn't really have many of those. I mean, Jorge Soler has been good from in terms of power, but really everybody else really hits their average. Of course, Luis Arias is on that team, and that is a pure average hitter and a very good average hitter. But it would be nice to have some guy who you can get into. It'd be nice to have a guy who can get into the seats consistently. But Miami doesn't really have that. They also made a trade, trading with the New York Mets, who pretty much has sold house, and getting from the Mets David Robertson. One of several players that they have traded away this trade deadline. And I'm sure they're probably not done just yet. So curious to see who else will be on the move for them. But as of right now, they've traded away 4 players, I think. Yeah, because they traded away Scherzer, they traded away Verlander. He went to Houston. Scherzer went to the Rangers. That'll actually be an interesting matchup there if they ever play each other. And then they trade Robertson to Marlins and Canna to the Brewers. So a lot of moves by the New York Mets, but Miami, they get Robertson out of it, a very good reliever, probably will end up being their closer, a very good player overall, and yeah, we'll see how it works for Miami. I think they might have made another trade as well, but I don't remember who that was. But nonetheless, Miami's been pretty impressive this year, and I'm sure they'll continue to look to improve upon their record and make a push for the playoffs. Sandy Alcantara has had a lackluster season this year, and I'm sure they'll want to hope he can do better. Of course, they have a lot of really young pitchers, so we shall see what happens. But so far, so good for Miami. And then we have probably the biggest disappointment in all of Major League Baseball this year, the New York Mets at 50 and 55. It was so bad it actually caused them to do a complete to completely sell essentially their entire team that made them that gave them the highest payroll in any team in Major League Baseball, and a record payroll, and it ended up being a 50 and 55 record. They've now traded Scherzer, they've now traded Verlander, who they both signed them massive contracts, and they probably ate a bunch of their money. Also traded, of course, like I said, David Robertson. Also traded away Mark Canha. They still might not be done. It is ugly. It is ugly over in Queens, and Mets fans are probably beside themselves. They got to the playoffs last year, just fell short to the San Diego Padres, who have also been a major league disappointment this year. But they played the Padres, just fell a tiny bit short, and the Padres, of course, they ended up going to the they ended up falling. They ended up going to playing the Phillies in the National League Conference in the NLCS. So, I mean, if you're a Mets fan, at least you lost to a pretty darn good team. But this Mets squad completely fell off a cliff this year, and really, really disappointing if you're a New York Mets fan. Personally, I don't really care about the Mets. So I had to choose a New York team, I would take them because I can't stand the Yankees. But either way, I don't care. But very disappointing year for the Mets. Complete teardown of the team, trade away several pieces. They got some good prospects in return for sure, but still rather disappointing to go from World Series to playoff borderline World Series contender to tearing down pretty much the entire team. Next, we have the Washington Nationals at 45 and 62. This team is not competing for anything. They did not expect to be competing for anything. And unsurprisingly so, they find themselves not competing at all. They did have one trade piece, actually, that they were able to use to their advantage in a former Tiger, in Jameer Candelario, who actually had a really good season. He's actually had a really good season this year. And since obviously the Nationals are not competing and Candelario's like near 30, they trade him away to the Chicago Cubs, getting some pieces in return. Nice for the Nationals to get something for a player who wasn't really in their future plans whatsoever. But this is obviously a team that is looking to rebuild. They are not looking to compete for, well, anything. So for the Nationals, they're not a great team, and they are going to be rebuilding probably for a decent amount of time. And now next we have the NL Central. The Central divisions in this in both leagues are just absolutely putrid. But this is definitely the better version of the two. And the top team, we start with the Cincinnati Reds at 59 and 49. What a wild team this has been. They have completely come out of absolutely nowhere, exploding onto the scene. Like I said last time, they exploded onto the scene after promoting Ellie De La Cruz to the team, and they've just they've just run with it since then. I mean, several improvements. They've got different prospects that have come up, good pitchers, but currently a lot of their pitching is hurt. They're missing a lot of pitchers. I know the injury, so they do need to add a bullpen or not bullpen arm, starting pitching arm here at the deadline if they really want to compete. Um, and maybe a hitter, but I definitely no, I don't know about hitter, but they need some pitching arms. They need some starting pitchers. They need some inning eaters. They don't really have many right now. They're kind of in a similar situation to the Orioles, where they haven't been good for a bit, and so they built up a good farm system. They have a bunch of good prospects that they can use in trades. So it'll be interesting to see what the Reds do. But this team was looking like they're looking like they're going to have another miserable season. And then all of a sudden they just kept winning and didn't stop. And really, they aren't stopping now either, as they've now been 7-3 in their last 10 games, won two straight, and they've taken the lead back away from the team right below them, who I'll talk about next, in the Milwaukee Brewers at 57 and 50. This Milwaukee Brewer team is like the direct and exact opposite of the Cincinnati Reds. They have an enormous amount of pitching. Their pitching staff is devastating, but they seriously lack hitting. It's like they got Willie Adames. I know has not been good this year. He has mightily struggled, which was one of their big players last year. And the other issue for the Brewers, I mean, the thing is, Christian Yelich has been really good for them this year, which is really good to see. The former MVP actually, well, looking like an MVP again. I mean, he's having a really good season, but the rest of the team around him has just kind of been uh, very lackluster. I mean, Christian Yelich, he's got a 290 batting average, 16 homers, 59 RBIs. I mean, really stinking good stats. Now, of course, was a uh, when he was a why am I blanking out here? When he was an MVP candidate, he did hit 36 and 44 homers, but I mean, still compared to the past few years where he barely played in any games, was constantly hurt, and just wasn't good. Seeing him hit 16 homers and hitting 290 is really encouraging. So he's been a lot better. It's not what he had during his MVP days, but it's good, and it is certainly enough for anything. But Willie Adames hitting 205. He does have 17 homers, but still 205, not very good. William Contreras has had a decent year. Has had a good year, 279. Good trade for the Brewers. Made that with the Braves, getting them a good catcher. But really, the rest of the team has just kind of been lackluster. They did trade for Carlos Santana from the Pirates to try and get them something. I believe they're the ones who traded for Mark Canha, but I'm not seeing that. They also just got Andrew Chafin from Arizona from the Diamondbacks, so they're uh, bringing in another reliever into the mix. certainly can help. But really, this team, yeah, Mark Hanna going to the. Oh, yeah, no, he's going to the Brewers. Yeah, I thought I was right about that. So they get Mark Hanna as well. I don't see him listed on here. Maybe he's hurt. But the Brewers need some offense, and they need to find it somewhere if they want to stay in contention. And so far, they have not found that. But the Brewers overall, not a bad team. The pitching staff has been good. It's just a matter of the hitting panning itself out. Next, we have the Chicago Cubs, who were on a very large winning streak, which pushed their run differential well ahead of everybody else because the NL Central, I think, actually at one point, none of the teams in the NL Central at one point had a positive run differential, but the Cubs have really flipped the script now with a long winning streak as they, I think, rattled off 8 wins in a row. Of course, now they've lost two, but they rattled off 8 wins in a row, and they went from being a team that was going to trade away pieces like possibly Cody Bellinger, who has had a borderline MVP type season himself, just like kind of Christian Yelich. He has completely turned things around, and trading away also Marcus Stroman, who's also had a fantastic season. They went from being a seller of getting rid of guys who didn't fit their timeline to suddenly, you know what? We're in contention. We're gonna go and get pieces, and they ended up going ahead and trading for Jameer Candelario. So very interesting spot for the Cubs. They are in desperate need of pitchers if they're really going to try and compete. They're in desperate need of pitching, specifically bullpen arms, because their bullpen is horrible. I mean, horrible. They really need some bullpen arms, and uh, they really have to find those fast, as we only got an hour left until the trade deadline. So we'll see if the Cubs can find that. But yeah, they have zero bullpen. Their bullpen has been so bad, and it has really hurt the Cubs. I mean, I think Michael Fulmer was supposed to be their closer, and he has, I think, like a 5 or 6 ERA. So, and I think their bullpen ERA, if you were to look, is like the worst in the majors. So clearly, they're going to need they're going to need a bullpen arm, and whether or not it will come, oh, I don't know. Fulmer has a 4.21 ERA. Never mind. I thought he had a 5. I don't know who their closer actually is. Um, but the Cubs, their bullpen has not been good, and they need bullpen arms. So we'll see uh, who or when or who they get. Next, we have the Pittsburgh Pirates, who had a hot start to the season. We're looking like one of the biggest surprises of the year with the uh, Tampa Bay Rays until they kind of came back down to earth, sort of. I mean, they have a similar record to the Tigers, which is still weird because they shouldn't be good. But they lost O'Neal Cruz earlier in the year. They are keeping Brian Reynolds. They trade away G-Man Choi and Rich Hill to the Padres today. They also trade away Carlos Santana to the Brewers, I mentioned. The Pirates are not a great team. They were in rebuild mode. They were kind of in a similar spot as the Reds, where they were just looking to tear down. They're in rebuild mode, and then they kind of found themselves actually with a really good record, and we're like, what the heck is happening? And they've kind of sort of come back down to earth. They're still 10.5 games behind the Reds, which isn't. I mean, it's obviously back a ways, but it's not that far back yet. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't compete. I would keep selling too, but honestly, the Pirates have still probably exceeded many people's expectations this year. And then next we have the St. Louis Cardinals, who have been another major league disappointment this year at 47 and 60. Their pitching staff has just been absolutely pathetic. I mean, there is no other way to say it. That they have a good offense. They got guys like Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Wilson Contreras. Um, Blanking on other names. Tommy Edman. They traded away Paul DeJong to the Blue Jays, but they have, and they have a lot of outfielders too. I mean, they have a massive amount of hitters. Just their pitching staff, their starting pitching was really what hurt them. And they actually traded away a couple of their pitchers because it was so bad. And of course, like I said, Paul DeJong. They traded away Jordan Montgomery to the Rangers along with a reliever whose name I forget. They traded away Jordan Hicks, I know, to the Toronto Blue Jays, and then also the Blue Jays called them to uh, ask about Paul DeJong, and they said, "Yeah, sure, we'll give him to you too." So, um, oh, we got another trade here as Jake Berger is going to the Miami Marlins. Alrighty, so the White Sox are sending away even more people. No, Trey Mancini's gone. Oh, sorry. So we have some more action once again, but this isn't the Cardinals. Just man, they went from being an exciting team with a possibility of being really good with some better pitching, which they never got, to being this bad, and really a surprise. They need to get some pitchers really at some point. I don't know when they're going to get those pitchers, but clearly they. I mean, they're not doing a total rebuild, so if they want to still compete, they need to get some pitchers um, in the next off season. Now we go to the NL West, of where we start with the number one team in this division in the LA Dodgers at 59 and 45. The LA Dodgers are in need of pitching. They have a lot of young pitchers, but none of them are really major league ready, are not ready really for the majors yet. They're all high prospects, but they're not really ready for the majors, and a lot of them have kind of just been hit around pretty bad. Their offense is nothing short of fantastic, as guys like Freddie Freeman, JD Martinez, Mookie Betts continue to power and chug that offense along. But other than really Clayton Kershaw and the pitching staff, they're looking for somebody, and who knows? The Tigers still have yet to trade Eduardo Rodriguez, so maybe we finally trade him to somebody. We already traded Lorenzen, but we still have yet to send somebody. Um, uh, but we still have yet to trade anybody. Um, Eduardo Rodriguez. I don't know why I was still blacking out on that. But we'll see if the Dodgers make a move there. So far for the Dodgers, good season though. They had a little bit of a slower start to the year where Arizona was leading the division for a long period of time before the Dodgers slowly made their way back and took the lead back from Arizona, and Arizona's kind of been floundering around a bit themselves lately. And now, after the Dodgers here, we have the San Francisco Giants at 58 and 49. A solid season for San Francisco. I think they made a move this off season. I can't remember the trade they made. Dodgers actually they did make a couple deals. I'm sorry, Dodgers did make a trade. They traded with the White Sox, getting themselves Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly. I think Joe Kelly actually was a former Dodger, so they bring him back. And they also traded for Kike Hernandez, getting him back from Boston. He returns to LA. And they also traded for Ahmad Rosario. They got him from Cleveland, trading away to Cleveland. Noah Syndergaard. I forgot about all those trades. There's too many. There's been too many trades. I can't remember them all. But the Giants made a trade too. Going back to the Giants, I can't remember who the San Fran Giants traded for, but it might have been a hitter. I really cannot remember. Like I said, it's been too many trades. I can't remember all of them. Um, but San Fran, pretty good team, oddly enough. They were not very special last year, but they kind of burst onto the scene after a slower start this year and are looking to make a wild card appearance, maybe. Um, this team is they have a really really nasty closer in Camilo Doval, who has been absolute dynamite this year. And they have a nice ace pitcher in Logan Webb, who has also been pretty good this year. And their hitting their hitters are solid. This is an all around just solid team. You know, this isn't a team that's going to win the World Series, but all around this is a decent team who they're on the right track. That's really all you can really say about San Fran. Their honestly their bullpen is pretty darn good. They had both the Rogers twins both, I think. I mean, Taylor Rogers has struggled quite a bit, but Trevor Rogers has been disgusting this year. He's been really good. And overall, the rest of San Fran's hitters have been pretty solid this year. Wilmer Flores has been solid. Lamont Wade Jr. has had a decent year. He's kind of hit a bit of a rough patch lately, though. But this is not a terrible team overall. It's solid. You might want to add another bat or two, but San Fran, decent team. Definitely looking to head to the playoffs and I don't know, maybe win a game or two. Next, we have the Arizona Diamondbacks, another team that really sucked for a while and then found themselves in a very odd position when they're actually winning games and they're like, wait a minute, so we actually get to compete for something? Okay. And so they ended up actually pretty much just trading out closers as they traded with the Seattle Mariners, getting from Seattle Paul Sewald, but then trading away the closer they originally had in Andrew Chafin to the Milwaukee Brewers, which is kind of odd. But um, overall, I really like this Arizona team. This is a young squad. What they really need is a starting pitching arm. I mean, it's nice to get Paul Sewald. It was kind of weird that they immediately traded away Chafin after that. I don't understand that part of it, but what they really need is a starting pitcher. I mean, they have Merrill Kelly, who has been solid this year, good vet. And then Zach Gallen has stayed healthy all year and is having a essentially and has put up an essential almost Cy Young Award season. So I mean, really good if you're Zach Gallen. But really, other than that, it's a mess of pitchers after that. There is nothing else, and you need really at least three different starters if you're gonna go to the playoffs and actually make some noise. So that's really what they're looking for. And obviously, the offense has been absolutely dynamite for them. All of their players have been really, really stinking good. What a season they have been having and are continuing to have. But their pitching has let them down for sure, and is definitely a need. I don't know if they're still going to try and make a trade to go and get a pitcher. Really, the only one I think left at this point is Eduardo Rodriguez. So they might be competing with a lot of people to try and get him. But this is a good team, and they're gonna need to, but they're gonna really need to go and make a trade here soon. And so next, after Arizona, we only got two teams left here. We go next to the San Diego Padres. As I mentioned, I was talking about the Mets. This is probably another one, the other big disappointment of the season here. The Padres went to the NLCS last year, lost to the Phillies, expected to be a World Series contender this year. Instead, they're 52 and 55 heading into the trade deadline, and had to win 5 games in a row just to even look like a reasonable uh, contender there, considering selling. That's how bad it was. But after sweeping the the Texas Rangers, who lead the AL West, the Padres said, yeah, you know what? We'll go ahead and keep the guys we have and maybe add a couple people. And they added G-Man Choi and Rich Hill coming from the uh, Pittsburgh Pirates, which I don't think that's nearly enough to try and flip this team around. I mean, their pitching staff is dynamite, but their offense has been incredibly lackluster. And guys like Juan Soto, I think Manny Machado has been better lately, but so many of their uh, big players have just been really, really bad and have not really panned out. Juan Soto, I know had a really rough start to the year, but I think he's turned it around a little bit. But I think his average is still kind of low, which is not good. And for San Diego, it's just been so disappointing. A team that really expected so much more and instead is getting the exact opposite. If I pull up San Diego here, just give me a moment. I mean, Juan Soto, he is up to actually 273. So he's been a lot better lately, but I knew he was at like 220, I think, to start the year. Machado, I knew, was at like 210. He's at 261. Xander Bogaerts was the big offseason signing for San Diego. He had a hot start, but then his average has been free falling since then. He had like a 360 average to begin the year. Now he's down to 264, which is actually better. He used to be at like 250, 240. And then Jake Cronenworth has been having a rough season at 219. Obviously not good. Their catching position has been an absolute mess. It's really been the offense that has completely let them down for San Diego. And that can always improve. I mean, they've already done a lot better, but they're going to need their offense to continue to do better to continue to win games and continue to get series like they did against the Rangers, which is kind of encouraging. But they still got past Arizona, San Fran, at least. And if they want to win the division, they still got past the Dodgers, and they're 5 games behind Arizona. So they're a long ways out, but definitely looking a lot better in that series against the Rangers. They still have yet to win more than 3 games in a row, but that Rangers series did give people hope for the Padres. And then the last team here, the Colorado Rockies at 42 and 64. They're not a good team. I mean, they're 25 and 28 at home, which is good, but I mean, they play at Coors Field, probably the most gimmicky field in all of the MLB. This team just doesn't ever seem to have good pitching, which is kind of subjective to say because they play at Coors Field, which is probably the most hitter-friendly park in all of Major League Baseball. I mean, if you're a pitcher and you go to Colorado, you're just asking to die. I mean, seriously, if you go to Coors Field, your career is just going down the drain essentially, and you're trying to I don't know. Pitchers never do well at Coors Field because of the incredibly thin air that is in Coors Field. And so, and hitting is easier, but their team just overall in general is not very good, and it hasn't been good actually in a very long time. So, if you're the Rockies, it's hard to get excited because you almost never are. This team never really seems to get anywhere. But overall, Colorado Rockies, yeah, not much to say. They just continue to flounder around still. All right, so that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As I said in the last MLB video, there will be some NFL, there'll be some NFL videos coming out. We'll have some college football stuff coming at you for sure. We have a lot of videos to do there because we still got the South and East divisions to do for the NFL before Thursday, which is the Hall of Fame game, and then we even got the West still to do, and that I'll just do next week because neither West team is playing in the Hall of Fame game. Um, yeah, but we got a lot still to do. We got a lot of videos coming at you, so I really hope you're ready for it because it's gonna be a lot of action. Well, that's it for me, as I said, and I will see you on the next one. Until next time, adios, everyone.